We now speak to Gavin Mkhabela, property investment strategist, and he joins us now via our video link. Gavin, thank you so much for your time this evening here in SABC News. I mean, just looking at the rise of, the cost of living in the country, and just being able to buy a home has become very difficult for many South Africans. And looking at this new trend of collective buying, do you think that this is the solution to ensure that people can eventually own their homes?
First of all, thank you so much, Mel, for having me. But yes, I mean, look, it's not even a new thing. I think we've been in it now for a couple of years now. So property stockpiles have really come up and become a solution, because if you realize that, especially within that lower end of the market, a lot of people have an issue of affordability. So, of course, when people now club together and looking at Stokvel as a model that has always been there to bring people together, bring resources, it's definitely, helping the market, especially, I think, with regards to the investment side of things, because I think that's where we see a lot of appetite, where people coming together, bringing resources and that affordability in order to get into the property investment game.
Now, I must say, when I look at a story like this and, things being done now in this nature, trust comes to the fore here. And, how do you trust that you are indeed taking the right decision to buy a house collectively?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a number of things that people need to look out for. So, I always say number one is to do the research behind the people that you're going to get into, so dig a little bit deeper just to see who are these people. Even people that you still need to find out exactly, what are their missions are, what are exactly, is their background. And of course, there is the structural aspect of creating these property stockpiles, in a sense that, of course, they take a more formal kind of route when we're now buying an immovable asset such as property. So looking at entities that we can use to buy these properties, whether it's buying in a company, buying in a trust, or buying in our individual capacity. So we always need to interrogate, the risk element to it, because there is the issue of death. When one of us passes on, what happens to our personal estate? There's divorces, there are people that are married in communal property, and then there's also withdrawals, because a person can come after we've bought maybe 2-3 properties and say, look, I want to get out of this. So we always need to cover such things. And we always talk about constitutions, we talk about shareholders agreements. So all of those mechanisms are there to then protect people, so that, at least that your interest is taken care of in that manner.
And I like the issue that you're touching on, the issue around death, because we can never know, if one can pass away. How does then, an investment like this nature deal with problems around death, especially when other members still need to ensure that the house is being paid for?
Yeah. So look, I think the beauty about it is that we do have things such as insurance, things like life covers that can then cover, in terms of that debt when somebody passes on. So it's always absolutely important that we also look at the insurance part of things to make sure that at least we are covered in that sense. But some of it is, then I would also just touch on things such as trust. But of course, everybody needs to get into that system that they really need to consult with professionals. But things such as trust, your interviewer's trust, that could definitely really protect our interest in such things, because what happens is that, when you look at a trust, it then separates the ownership from our personal estate. So if now I pass on and you look at the trust, there is that independence that comes through. So maybe those are some of the platforms that people that are venturing in such formations may look into, so that at least there is that kind of protection, because then with regards to your trust, it doesn't die. So we can also just put clauses within the trust, maybe to say that if Gavin passes on, my interest maybe can then go over to my children, because there is no liquidity at that time. Because remember, when we buy that property, yes, we're getting the rental income, but most of our money is now plugged into this property. So it's not really liquid. So maybe we need some time for us to liquefy it, or maybe to buy out the interest of that particular member. So there's always need to be some consultations that takes place, when we get into such, because it's not as if now we're just putting money away in a bank account and we can always distribute it. This is an immovable asset that we're talking about.
How beneficial has this sort of buying been, especially for homeowners? I mean, do you know of any stories where people have been successful in purchasing their homes using this method?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a number of successes that we have, like SABC as one of the property stokvels that I think it's a beacon of hope, that have really done very well. They've ventured even to the spaces such as Airbnbs. So there's a number of them. So I think if one can really just get into, especially social media now, there's also platforms like Stokvela, which is an app that people can get into. They can really see those stokvels being listed on those platforms. But there's definitely has been a number of successes, as much as the scammers has been there. So I always caution that there has to be proper research that one does in order for them to be safe. But yeah, there has been a number of successes.
And I like the fact that you also touch on scammers, because one would say sometimes things associated with stokvels can also result to, some people being scammed. How does one, be cautious and be aware if whether what they're getting into is not a fraudulent activity and it actually does indeed help in them benefiting and getting a home?
Yeah. So I think maybe the first part, it will also just to understand what this property stokvel is all about, because not all of them, they're about the true ownership of an asset. So you'll find that some of them, it will be made to say, put in the money, we put it into maybe a real estate company that does projects, we're getting interest. So there needs to be an understanding. Are we putting money so that we get interest, or are we buying that physical asset? And when you buy that physical asset, there needs to be then the first interrogation would be, what entity are we using and who are part of that entity? So if I'm getting into this, am I now a shareholder if we're going to buy in a PTY, or if we're just buying just an individual basis, or as a group, but just with our names, natural state? Am I part of this? Will I own a percentage of this? And then when we now do the offer to purchase, then you need to make sure that you are part of that. When it's registered at the deeds office, you need to make sure that you are part of that deed. So those are the things that definitely guide you. If there are things like the constitution, the shareholders agreement, is your name there? But of course that will be the secondary kind of part of things. Whereas the interim part of is that you need to be able to do the research and see, first of all, if now we want to be buying, not necessarily there has to be an experience part of it, but you need to get a sense that these people know what they're doing, or they can, maybe make use of a coach that is also reputable, that has a track record. So just make sure that at the end of the day, whatever that you do, you are part of it and it's legit. And if it's going to be financing, you now need to supply your pay slips and all of that. Do that while at least having, that comfort that the people that you are dealing with are pretty much, they know what they're doing, and you have done that background check. But of course, it's not 100% proof, because the scammers these days are on another level. But yeah, please ask as many people as you can, and especially the people that are also vocal on these platforms. There's a number of us who are commentating and are advocates around this. So please reach out so that we can then guide you accordingly.
Mr. Mkhabela, thank you so much for your time and that very important information. That is Gavin Mkhabela. He is a property investment strategist, just giving us insight there in terms of how one can get into the business of buying homes collectively, and most importantly, what to look out for.